Good morning, everyone. This is Caitlin Minzy from ITS, and today we will be going over Symantec's VIP solution, which is a two-factor authentication solution. All right, so today's agenda, we're going to go over today's risks, what we currently face within our business today and how authentication plays a huge factor with that. And then we're going to go into VIP, give a solution overview, talk about the different type of credentials that users can pick from or that you can choose within your own environment. And then we'll review Intelligent Authentication and the components within VIP, so all of the features and different tools that come with it. And then I will do a demo of the VIP Manager. And then we have time at the end for some Q&A. So, a lot of questions that we face within our organization around two-factor authentication. Is the password strong enough? Who do I have accessing my internal network? What data are they accessing and from where? So these are all questions just to get you thinking, how secure is my authentication for the end user, which can sometimes be overlooked. People want to protect their servers and their databases and their network, but, getting protection around the user and authenticating them into these critical business assets of yours can be a huge component of security. And, today there's 80% of breaches could have been prevented by using two-factor authentication because the password just simply is not strong enough. And there's some other statistics on, how authentication affects the security within our environment, and things are just changing. People are working from home. People have access to their work assets on their cell phone, their personal device. People don't lock their personal device with a passcode. So much has changed within business operations, and there's been a shift in how users can interact with the business and internal employees. And, our current landscape has just expanded on how users are accessing your environment. And the reality with today is 75% of people are going to be working from home at a regular basis by the end of this year. 50% of people do not have a password or a lock code on their smartphone. A lot of people use the same passwords for everything, so you're very vulnerable if an end user were to lose their laptop or be logging in on a public Wi-Fi that isn't secure. There's phishing scams, there's malware, there's antivirus, there's all these things that the end user can endure that can put your business at risk based on all the different risks and threats that we face today. And so, organizations have to balance this challenge of authenticating their user, being compliant, and making sure that the end user and essentially the service desk isn't bogged down by, users can't get in, they need access to certain things. We want to make sure that the right users have access to things, that we're locking all of that stuff down, and balancing that act can be very challenging. And so that's why two-factor authentication is such a great mechanism to fight all of these threats that we face today. And for those who don't know what two-factor authentication is, it simply takes something like your username and password, and then something you have. So by taking those two factors and using them to validate the user, only adds an extra layer of security when users are accessing your environment. So within Symantec VIP, there's lots of great features within the tool that makes it a smart choice for rolling out authentication. It allows you to put it, wherever access points are for the end user, whether it's remote access through VDI or web apps, Citrix, anything that your users would be logging into to get access to this critical information to your business, critical applications, anything like that. It also allows the end user to, it kind of empowers them in a sense, because it allows them to register their own devices, select what type of security code or credential they want to use. So there's a lot of things on the end user side that makes this a very friendly solution to that internal or external person that you're trying to authenticate. And we'll get into that a little bit later. It does behavior profiling, so it details, different aspects of the user, where they're logging in from, what operating system they're using. So it's a very intelligent type of authentication that can go beyond just the two factors. And also it is cloud-based, so a lot of it is hosted at Symantec, which I will get into a little bit later on. And again, there's a wide variety of credential, and it just integrates really well within your environment. So here's just an overview of the solution. So when the user logs into, VPN into your environment, what it will do then is take those first credentials that they entered. For example, I'll just say their user ID and password. So the authentication will be sent to the enterprise gateway server, and that is where it will validate those user credentials against your user store, which syncs within your Active Directory if that's the route you wanted to take, which we can get into a little bit later if people have more questions on that. So it will then validate against the user store and those credentials, username and password, against the security code that they enter in real time. So it will take those, make sure that the user has both of those, and then send the authentication back to VPN. And if they're successful, it will prompt them into the network, and if they are not successful, it will deny them, and they will not be able to get in until they have the two credentials that they need, the two factors. So as I mentioned before, there's a lot of different types of authentication methods that users and employers can choose on what works best for your environment. Some people want to use two-factor authentication, but a lot of their employees work in a manufacturing plant, and may not have their cell phone. It might not be permitted on site. So things like that, this really allows you to narrow down how you want users to be able to get in, which can also be a very friendly choice for the end user as well, because it aligns with how they need to do their day-to-day business function. So for the one-time password credential, this is 3 different options. There's a hardware token option, which there's a security card and an actual hardware token, and you just push the button and it will generate that code. So they'll use that 6-digit code to log in with their username and password. There's a mobile and desktop software, which are free downloads. I use the smartphone app personally. It just generates that 6-digit code every 30 seconds. It's really convenient for me. It doesn't require data, or it doesn't store any information. It simply just generates that code. Then there's also the embedded device, which is an Intel IPT chipset. So users can download the software onto their computer with that Intel chipset, and then from there, every time they log in, it will just validate against that chipset that's in that specific laptop or computer. So then there is also out of band, and this would be SMS, texting, voice call, or email. So when the user logs in with their username and password, it will send them either a text message, a voicemail, or an email. Obviously there are some more risks around doing it this way. For example, email, a lot of people use Office 365, but it is a good fallback if users don't have access to a smartphone. They don't want to use their personal device to log in, anything like that. It just offers, many options for the end user. So the last credential option is more for tokenless authentication for the one-time password. So a device fingerprint, this would look at the exact device. So for example, if I'm always logging into VIP with my iPhone 5 with the operating system 10.4, if anything changes, if all of a sudden I'm logging in on an Android phone, or I've recently gone down in an operating system version, anything like that would trigger the authentication because it doesn't match my device fingerprint. So there's registered computer, and this does not require any kind of software download. It will just identify within the certificate that the user downloads and then verify them from there. Intelligent authentication, we'll get into that next, but this is just a smarter way to add more security to your authentication. So beyond just the two factors, how can you really add more layers of security to that? And then recently, they have added the VIP access push feature, and this will actually send a push notification to the end user within their smartphone app, and they simply click allow or deny. So this is one of the most popular features that I've seen that users really like, that it's that simple. They don't have to enter a security code. They log in, the notification pops up on their phone, and they hit allow, and then they're prompted into either their network or other applications. So this goes back to the registered computer and how this works. It allows users to have two-factor authentication but not have to be bogged down with entering the passcode, which again, depending on how your business works, maybe this is something that would really cater to your business and how you want to add security but balance what's best for the user experience. So VIP Intelligent Authentication is just another level above two-factor authentication. So based on, again, where the world is going, there's so much risk, and it's only expanding based on where technology is going, where business is going, how end users work, where they work, and as I had said previously, that email is a great option, but I can access my email from any device that I find. So if that's something that's compromised, the end user has a lot of, vulnerable information on that device within that email, and it's just a very scary world in today's time. So intelligent authentication is just another way to authenticate the user based on their profile. So you can set it up to pull attributes on location, the device that they use, the browser version that they use, and I can set it up so if any of those attributes are off, if 1 hour I'm logged in Michigan and then 2 hours later I'm logged on in Texas, it will deny that user from logging out and will show up within the VIP manager as a potential risk and someone who is trying to log in that just didn't fit that behavior profile. So it challenges the user in another aspect and makes sure that the device they're using, the code that they have, the profile that that user has around them, everything needs to align in order to identify that I am who I say I am, and that's how you get into the network. You need to have all of the attributes in order to get access. So again, if you just look at the graphic on the right, it goes over this fun, colorful drawing, but it just will look at the device that you're using, taking into effect all of the attributes. Is this user logging in at normal time, normal location, normal device? Looking at all of those things encompassed into one type of authentication, and then once everything has been validated by the end user, then it will authenticate them into your environment. And it's just another way to ensure that you're having strong authentication, but not having it all based on the actual password. And it does not require a token, which again could be useful for your environment. Whatever use case you're trying to solve, VIP can help align with what you want to put authentication on, how you want users to be able to authenticate into the network, and what type of security you would like to add. So there are two components to VIP besides the enterprise gateway server, which is where the actual configuration is done. But the self-service portal is where end users go to register their own devices. So if you were to roll out this solution, you would send out a communication to end users and say, you need to go to this link, log on to the self-service portal, and you will be able to register your device. Once they log in, depending on how you configure it, some people's environments are a little bit different where they don't need this additional step to your left, but it will send them a first security code to use when they log in. So once they receive that 6-digit code, they continue with login, and then once they are in the self-service portal, on your right you will see that they can register a credential. So if I lose my device, if I can't find my smartphone and I go buy a new device, I can simply just log on to the self-service portal, register my new token or device, and then it will work from there. So it really takes the burden away from service desk and having to worry about resetting passcodes, setting up new credentials for users if they're lost or stolen. And it also gives the end user power to receive a temporary security code. And again, this can be provisioned for your environment, so if you don't want users to be able to log in and do this, there's lots of provisioning you can do to make this align with exactly how you want your end user to be empowered to receive these credentials and register and log in. So that is the self-service portal. This is where the end user goes. And then our next component would be the VIP manager. So this is a portal where your admins can go. They can look up users, disable credentials, generate one-time passwords, see an overview of successful and unsuccessful login attempts in real time. So it really just gives a great overview for the VIP admin and allowing them to facilitate anything that the end user needs beyond what they're empowered to do themselves. Which now I will go into a brief demo. This is a Symantec hosted web portal. Again, you can provision it so that it sits within your environment, but I can actually log into this from any point. So you would just Google VIP manager and it will show up. And of course, none of those are my password. So for logging into this, you will need a security code because it does require two-factor authentications for VIP admins as well. So let me just type in my password. I'm going to then open up my smartphone and click on my VIP app. And the code does generate every 30 seconds. So once that code expires, and if you haven't clicked continue, you can just wait for the next code to generate and it will authenticate you as soon as that code pops up. I am now within the VIP manager, and this is the overview of all the authentication that's going on. Again, this is my demo environment, so there's not a lot of activity that goes on. So it's been a very successful authentication tool. This will show up in real time. It'll tell you what the user was trying to do, who was trying to do it, and at what time. And it will show you if they were able to log in, if it was successful or unsuccessful. So if I'm trying to reset temporary passcode or register a new device, it will show up within operation, which is great for your service desk because they can log in, see what's going on, see what user is having an issue, and be able to identify that right away and what's going on. So I'll just give a quick run through of the tool and the different features within it. The Users tab are all of the users who have registered devices within your environment. So if I log in, I download the security code, but I haven't registered my device yet, it will not authenticate you. It will still show up in the front dashboard that this user was trying to log in, but you have to have a registered device with VIP in order to show up as a user in here. Another thing you can do is search by the user ID or credential ID, and then once you're able to find the user, if they're having issues with their phone, they're temporarily away from their phone and they need a passcode urgently, you can generate a temporary security code that can be sent to the user and have it expire within a day. Generally, I like to tell people to keep it at 1 day, even though you can customize it and pick a specific date, which for some companies works great for people who are contractors or only need limited access to your environment, consultants, anything like that. It's just another way to leverage how that security code is used and when it expires. I'm actually going to generate one, and then you can see that whole process. So multiple use means that they can use that code multiple times throughout the given threshold that you establish. One-time use, is once they receive the security code, I believe it expires within the threshold that you sent, within a day, and then they can only use that code one time throughout that day, and then it will expire. And once I hit generate, it will show me the code that the user is going to receive and when it will expire, which end users can do this themselves based on how you provision it for your environment, but being able to support the end user no matter what kind of situation they're in, to make sure that they can authenticate in. You never know when some VP may not have access to their phone, they've lost it, or a corporate device, anything like that. You just want to be able to support the end user and also keep established authentication in place as well. So the Credentials tab will show you what user credentials are being used. So as you'll see, this one is VIP access for mobile, so this would be the smartphone app, and it is inactive, and it'll tell you the state and the details. So Credentials just gives an overview. You can look by the state of the credential. If you, for some reason, have thousands of users and this user claims they can't get in, and you know that their credential is just disabled or anything like that, you can search this way. The Account tab within the navigation bar just gives an overview of your account, what type of settings are currently provisioned, and then on your right hand side, this is where it gets a little more granular into the VIP Intelligent Authentication. There's more configuration you have to do within the Enterprise Gateway server, but this is where you would provision it, allow multiple users to use the same credential, enable push mode, say how many login attempts users get. So that type of provisioning is done within the VIP Manager console. So just a quick look at Intelligent Authentication. Again, this has not been configured within my demo. There's a little bit more in the configuration on the server side, but I can still set it up so that it can be tolerant of people signing in, or I can make it strict and block specific IP addresses, look at the device that they're logging in from, and if things don't align with that user's profile, then it will not authenticate them into the network. So a lot of things that worry companies about the VIP manager is, how do you facilitate what your service desk is allowed to do? Do you want to give all your admins access to this environment within VIP, the VIP manager? And what you can do is you can create admin groups based on whatever functions and roles you want them to be able to do. So if you outsource your IT department, or you have a specific group that only really needs to view customer or user credentials, anything like that, you can provision levels of access within the VIP manager, which is nice because a lot of people have different service desk or IT functions that may need to use this. So then the reporting tab, this generates reports, different reports for end users, credentials, and based on the type of report you create, I can really set it up to be as detailed as I want. I can include what users, different dates. I can pick a specific day if there were certain instances, and then once I generate that report, it will give me details on, how many users were added, who's enabled, who's disabled, and I can export that file as well. And then, so we're going to just leave it at all users. So this will show the time, the user, and the operation, like I had said, is on the front dashboard page, the result of that authentication, and then I can detail down and it will show me the status code, which aligns with some of the support documentation, the status of that authentication, what it was requesting, and this would be request ID for the VIP manager. So this person was getting a temporary security code generated to them. So you're really able to read what exactly is going on within the user and authentication beyond just logging in. So this, if I was an admin and I want to know, what admins are sending out these temporary security codes, this would show me what users have received those security codes, what time, if it was successful, and what they were trying to do. So the reporting function is pretty cool. I like it. It really shows, what's been going on within your environment from an authentication perspective. All right. So the Help tab just gives, supporting documentation on, finding credentials, end users, adding groups. It doesn't go into the configuration, but it's for support and facilitating the solution. And that is your VIP manager. So again, this is different than the self-service portal, but very similar setup. So, just to review, VIP authentication, it's a great solution. It offers very secure protection for the end user. It's not a complex tool. It sounds, like there is a lot that the end user does in rolling this out, but a lot of feedback we've gotten from the end user is that it is convenient and they don't mind, one more step within the login process because they are so empowered to provision their credentials based on their own use case. If I lost my phone, if I'm going to be remote this week and I need to log in, if I have a new device, anything like that, it really takes away the burden of service desk tickets being filled out constantly and facilitating that and allowing the end user to do what they need. It's very flexible, and if you don't want to implement intelligent authentication right away, you can just keep it simple, get two-factor standing up on its feet, and then move forward into doing more within behavior profiling and intelligent authentication. So it's a very secure product, and it offers a lot of really great features for authenticating users to whatever portion of the network or applications that you would like.